Today, we're taking a deep dive into Quantum C-Tech. This is a company that sits right at the very heart of China's strategic technology ambitions.
All right, we're going to start with the conclusion first. Our analysis really boils down to 4 key pillars, and these pillars define Quantum C-Tech's strategic position right now.
So these 4 points really form the core of our thesis. What we're looking at is a national champion that's showing some unique strength. It's deeply tied in with a state-owned giant, but at the same time, it's facing some very serious external threats. Now, let's unpack each of these with the data to back it up.
Here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll deconstruct the core business itself. Then we'll dive into its market performance, analyze its competitive advantages, its moat, and finally, we'll look at that critical balancing act between its opportunities and the huge geopolitical risks it's up against.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the company's strategic position, we first have to understand what it actually does. Its technology portfolio is really made up of 3 very distinct business lines.
You can think of the company's operations as running on 3 parallel racetracks, if you will. Each one is at a different stage of development and, importantly, serves a very different strategic purpose.
So the first and most developed of these is quantum communication. Think of it as a secret messenger. It uses the principles of quantum physics to create ultra-secure channels for sending encryption keys. This is really the foundation of the whole company.
Then you have the high-growth engine, quantum computing. The ambition here is massive. They're trying to build a super brain. This isn't just a small step up. It's a technology that offers an exponential leap in computing power. We're talking about solving problems that are literally impossible for even the most powerful supercomputers we have today. And that brings us to the third area, quantum measurement. Now, this is an emerging business, and it's all about leveraging the incredible sensitivity of quantum states to build instruments with unprecedented accuracy. A good analogy is a precision ruler, but one that can measure forces like gravity with incredible detail. You can see the applications here. Think resource exploration or even predicting natural disasters.
Okay, so now that we have a grasp on the different parts of the business, let's turn to the hard numbers. We're going to analyze the company's performance through the lens of market data from this past September.
What's really striking is that back in September, the stock didn't just do well, it significantly outpaced the broader market. It generated 4.67% of alpha against the CSI 300 index. Now, what that tells us is that its performance wasn't just about the market tide lifting all boats. No, this was driven by factors unique to the company itself.
And this chart really puts that into perspective. Look at the scale of that outperformance. A 7.26% monthly return for Quantum C-Tech versus just 2.59% for the index. So the big question is, why?
Well, what's fascinating is that this strong performance was pretty much isolated. It wasn't part of some broad rally in the tech sector. In fact, if you look at its closest peers, they all posted negative returns in that same period. That's a huge signal that capital was flowing very selectively, picking Quantum C-Tech out from the crowd.
And if we dig into the trading activity, one day really stands out, September 18th. We saw a massive spike in volume. Over 10% of the company's entire free float changed hands in a single day. You know, for market analysts, that's a textbook signal. It suggests significant and likely very well-informed institutional money was moving into this stock.
So what's fundamentally driving all this market activity? Let's now peel back the layers and look at the company's competitive advantages, what we call its moat, and pair that with its underlying financial realities. And the company's strategic position is really defined by this tension, this dichotomy. On one hand, you have this incredibly powerful moat. It's built on its status as a national team player, it has a protected domestic market, and that deep integration with China Telecom. But on the other side of the ledger, you have some very real challenges. The company still isn't profitable, it's staring down severe supply chain risks, and it's dealing with negative operating cash flow. Now, if we break down the revenue for the first half of this year, we see a really critical shift happening. The quantum computing division, it just exploded, growing by nearly 284% year over year. And in doing so, it actually overtook quantum communication to become the company's single largest source of revenue. That's a huge development. So this whole financial picture brings us right back to that central tension we talked about, the one that's going to define Quantum C-Tech's future. It's this clash between an immense opportunity, one that's driven by national strategy,
versus an almost existential threat posed by geopolitics.
And things have been moving fast. A series of really powerful catalysts have lined up just this year. First, you had China Telecom stepping in to become the controlling shareholder. That brings critical funding and a clear path to market. Then you had that massive revenue surge we just saw. Add to that strong signals of state support and even the Nobel Prize in Physics, which just happened to validate the core technology the company is pursuing.
But set against all of that powerful domestic momentum is the single biggest risk to the company's entire business model. And really, there's no better way to describe it than as a sword of Damocles hanging right over its head.
And let's be clear, this isn't just a theoretical risk. We're talking about an active and escalating U.S. policy. The Department of Commerce has officially flagged China's quantum sector as a national security concern, and it's using the Entity List as its primary tool to cut off access to technology. We've already seen several Chinese quantum companies targeted just this year, which points to a policy trajectory that is only getting more intense.
And so this leaves us with the fundamental strategic question that's ultimately going to decide the company's long-term fate. Can this powerful national strategy overcome intense global geopolitical pressure? For quantum C-Tech, the path forward is a high-stakes balancing act, caught between immense domestic support on one side and severe external pressure on the other. And right now, the final outcome is anything but certain.